In Istanbul, Pakistan and Afghanistan are still talking. It's the third straight day of negotiations, intense, cautious, and still unresolved. These these are the most serious discussions between the two neighbors since the Taliban took control in Kabul back in 2021. And while the official line is about joint cooperation and regional stability, the real issue is sharper. How to stop the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP from using Afghan soil to attack Pakistan. I'm Omer Farooq Khan, and you are listening to Axis Pakistan. Today, we'll unpack what's happening behind those closed doors in Istanbul, why these talks matter, how Pakistan has used new tools of pressure and diplomacy, and why this moment could reshape the region's security map if it doesn't collapse first. Let's start with the basics. These were the second round of Pakistan Afghanistan talks. The first happened in Doha earlier this month. After deadly clashes along the border, Qatar brokered that ceasefire. This new round was hosted by Turkey, with Qatar again acting as guarantor. Pakistan sent a heavyweight delegation, senior officials from the Inter-Services Intelligence, the Directorate of Military Operations, and the Foreign Office. The Afghan side was led by Deputy Interior Minister Maulavi Rahmatullah Najib, along with the familiar faces like Anas Haqqani and Sohail Shaheen. At first, it looked promising. Both sides exchanged written proposals and even added uh, an unplanned second session. But by late Sunday night, that optimism had vanished. Pakistani negotiators demanded verifiable action, evidence, arrests, dismantling of TTP camps inside Afghanistan. Pakistan even shared photos, documents, and Afghan IDs recovered from militants caught crossing the border. The Taliban answer: evasive, no written commitment, no assurances, just vague promises and counter accusations. Pakistani officials described their responses as, and I quote, illogical and opposite to ground realities. At one point, the Afghan side even offered to bring the TTP to the table for direct talks with Pakistan. But Islamabad flatly refused, saying, "We won't negotiate with terrorists. It's your job to stop sheltering them." Now, here's where things turn almost surreal. Even as these talks were happening, militants tried to cross the border into Pakistan, not once but twice, in Kuram and North Waziristan. The timing couldn't have been worse. Pakistan's military said these infiltration attempts during the Istanbul talks cast serious doubt on Kabul's intentions. And, and they are not exaggerating. Earlier this month, we saw the worst border clashes between the two neighbors since the Taliban took power, with soldiers and civilians killed on both sides. A 48-hour truce followed, collapsed within 2 days. Then came the Qatar brokered ceasefire, and finally these Istanbul talks. So imagine the frustration. While you are sitting at the table negotiating peace, armed men are crossing the border back home. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif put it bluntly. If these talks fail, he said, it could mean open war. That's not diplomatic language, that's a warning. Now let's zoom out. Pakistan's officials hinted that the Afghan delegation might be following someone else's agenda. That someone, of course, is India. India has been deepening its engagement with Kabul in recent months, opening development channels, increasing diplomatic contact, and signaling quite support for the Taliban regime. And just as Istanbul talks hit a deadlock, Indian forces reportedly violated the ceasefire across the line of control in the Lipa sector of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Coincidence? Maybe. But timing in geopolitics is merely accidental. Uh, Rarely accidental, I would say, not merely. Pakistan's message, both to Kabul and the world, is that continued Taliban inaction will destabilize not just Pakistan, but the whole region. China, China and Iran are backing Islamabad's stance. The West, led by the US, is also quietly endorsing efforts to curb cross border terror, which brings us to the next big shift: Washington's sudden warmth toward Islamabad. So let's step back. Pakistan today isn't isolated. On the TTP issue, China and Iran support Islamabad's position. Even Western capitals involving Washington quietly back efforts to stop Afghan based militancy. And that brings us to the next twist: the United States. Yes, the same Washington that once lectured Pakistan about doing more. Now it's talking about working together again. During the Istanbul talks, Donald Trump, the US president, now back in the news, told reporters in Kuala Lumpur, I'll get that ceasefire between Pakistan and Afghanistan solved very quickly. I'll get that conflict, not ceasefire, I'll get that conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan solved very quickly. Now, that's classic Trump, bold, oversimplified, but it signals something more: a renewed US interest in Pakistan as a regional stabilizer. Then, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that Washington wants to expand its strategic partnership relationship with Pakistan and that this doesn't come at India's expense. He called it mature diplomacy. Translation: the US wants both Pakistan and India for different reasons. Rubio even acknowledged that Trump personally helped diffuse tensions between Islamabad and New Delhi earlier this year, paving the way for what he called a new phase in ties with Pakistan. And if you follow the money, you'll see what's really at stake. A new US Pakistan minerals partnership is quietly reshaping the relationship. In September, American firm US Strategic Metals uh, signed a deal to invest roughly $500 million to establish mineral processing and development facilities inside Pakistan. We are talking rare earth elements here, the materials that power electric vehicles, wind turbines, and advanced electronics. The first consignment of mineral samples has already been shipped to the US in collaboration with Pakistan's Frontier Works organization. The company called it a milestone in the Pakistan US strategic partnership. Now, think about that. While Pakistan and Afghanistan are stuck in old patterns of mistrust and militancy, Washington is quietly re engaging Pakistan through economics, technology, and resource development. This isn't charity, it's strategic. The US wants to diversify its rare earth supply chains away from China, and Pakistan offers a viable alternative. So, as Islamabad faces resistance from Kabul, it's building leverage elsewhere. So, where does this leave us? The Istanbul talks didn't collapse completely, but they are hanging by a thread. Mediators from Turkey and Qatar are doing their best to keep communication alive. Pakistan has made its final position clear. No progress unless the Taliban act decisively against cross border terrorism. But here's the tricky part: the Afghan delegation in Istanbul didn't seem to have full authority. Officials say they were taking real time instructions from Kabul and Kandahar. That means decisions rest with multiple power centers inside the Taliban regime. And that's part of the problem. The moderates talk cooperation, the hardliners close to the Haqqani network prefer ambiguity. Meanwhile, infiltration continues, the border remains tense, and patience in Islamabad is wearing thin. Let's end with this. Pakistan's current approach rests on three goals. One, push the Taliban to eliminate terror sanctuaries. Two, rebuild global partnerships, especially with the US. And three, stabilize the border before things spiral out of control. But if the Taliban keep stalling, Pakistan might act alone through tougher border enforcement or cross border strikes. And that could drag both sides into a confrontation neither side can afford. Still, amid all this gloom, there's one silver lining. Pakistan is no longer boxed in. It's building regional consensus with China and Iran and strategic depth with the US through economic deals. So while the Istanbul talks ended in stalemate, they also marked a turning point because what happens next won't just decide Pakistan Afghanistan relations, it could reshape Pakistan's entire foreign policy axis. That's all for today's Axis Pakistan. If you find if you found this breakdown useful, share it and follow for more deep dives into Pakistan's politics, power, and place in the world. I'm Omer Farooq Khan. Thanks for listening.